Hey, church, so glad that you are with us today. Today is week 2 in our Being Challenge. That's being, and hopefully you have a book, and if not, you can buy them online. So you can go to our Freshwater website, and you can click online. We do not have any more books in stock. We sold out of all that we had, so now you got to go right to the person who publishes them, and you can get your copy there. And even if you didn't start in week 1, which was kind of just an overview and introduction to what we're doing, you can go ahead and buy a book. It'll ship quickly, and you can pick up right where you can just join in our entire church on what we are doing, because we're doing this with our students, we're doing it with our kids ministry, and we're certainly doing it with our adult ministry. And so last week we opened up this whole Being Challenge, this 40-day challenge, and I've really been challenging you to be more like Jesus Christ. Last week we talked about aiming for the right thing, not aiming for this or aiming for that, but knowing exactly what we're aiming for. And in this challenge, we're aiming to be more like Jesus Christ. Not the apostles, not anything else. We're saying, okay, what life did Jesus live? What were his keystone habits? And since he is our aim, we want to focus entirely on him. So, question for you, all right? Take a look at this graph. So now on the left, you have a line, and on the right, you have 3 options. So what would the answer be? Which line matches this line? Is it line A, line B, or line C? So if you're online, you can go ahead and type in your answer. This is not a trick question. This is not a trick question, all right? Which line matches the one on the left? Is it A, is it B, or is it C? Well, honestly, the answer is C. Not a trick question. See, that line's the exact same length as this one on the left. But it's very interesting because there was an experiment that was done in the 1950s by a guy named Solomon Asch. And he asked the same question to a group of people, in fact, to a series of people. And at the end of his experiment, 75% of the people actually chose line A to match this particular line. The answer, or the question is, why is that? Why would people clearly say the answer is A, knowing that it's wrong, when they knew the answer was C? But why would they put down A? Because this is the experiment that Solomon did. Solomon had a group of people who signed up to be a part of this study. And they came into a room, and he would ask them the same question as well as a bunch of other questions. He was kind of lobbing them softballs, like which matches which, like an apple and an apple and an apple and an orange, which 2 match? Really simple questions. And when the person was by themselves, they got it right 100% of the time. Then he introduced another person, so he'd do a series of studies. And then he had one person with one other person in the room, and he did the same study. And the other person would say A, and the other person would go, the study subject would go, well, the answer's C, I'm just in the room with a moron. But then he kept adding people, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10. He'd have 10 basically actors and actresses in the room, and he'd bring in a person, and he would ask all those simple questions, and then he would ask this question: which line is the same? And unbeknownst to the subject, all of the actors and the actresses would all know that the right answer is C, but they would all shout A, and they would mark it down. And something remarkable happened. Something remarkable. Even though the subject clearly knew the answer was C, because of how all the other people responded in the group, they would answer A 75% of the time. Why is that? It's because most people would rather be wrong with the crowd than right by themselves. Most people would rather be wrong with the crowd than right by themselves. Today what we're talking about is committing to community. And in this message, I hope that you commit to a community that affirms your relationship with Jesus Christ. Because most people would rather be wrong, and fit in the crowd than to be right and to do what is right. Jesus Christ says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You might be the only one in the crowd who affirms this. And I hope that your life reflects that. Rather than just denouncing your faith or downplaying your faith, I hope that you choose to make the right decision, even if it's the tough decision, no matter what situation you happen to be in. So, The Being Challenge is about centering your life on Jesus Christ. And last week we talked about keystone habits that we all have. Keystone habits. Some of them we have intentionally, some we just don't even realize we have. But keystone habits are defined, or I should say this, small habits done consistently over time produce major results. And that is specifically true with keystone habits. So a normal habit is something you do over and over and over on a regular and consistent basis. But a keystone habit is a habit that you do that really spills over into every other area of your life. Like the example is exercise. If you exercise, it helps you with mental clarity. It helps you with your performance at work. It helps you with your good health benefits. So simply choosing to exercise has a profound impact on all other areas of your life. That's just one example. But small habits done consistently over time produce major results. I always like the illustration of a bamboo tree. And I actually read about it this week again because there's so many variations of the bamboo tree. But there's one bamboo tree in China that is known for its rapid growth. Actually, it's not so rapid growth at first. There's this one variation of the bamboo tree that spends about 3 years as a very small plant. And in those 3 years, it really develops its entire root system. Then in the next 6 weeks, after like this 3-year period of strengthening its roots, after that 3-year period of storing up these nutrients, in the next 6 weeks, it can grow upwards of 90 feet. Just imagine that, watching a tree grow 90 feet in 6 weeks. That to me is absolutely unbelievable. But that's what I believe that these keystone habits that we're looking at in this Being Challenge will do. If we start to commit to these habits, these keystone habits that Jesus had, we're planting our roots in the gospel. We're aiming at Christ. And I know that you're going to see spiritual growth simply because of it. So, keystone habits are habits that we form that unintentionally carry over into other areas of our lives. That's what they are. Just explain that. This is what Matthew 11:29 says. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. This is what Jesus said. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. So Jesus is simply inviting us to walk with him and to watch how he does it. And you and I have the Bible. We can read it and study it and learn from it. And we can see how Jesus lived his life. We can see the habits that Jesus had, these keystone habits. We can apply them to our own life. And because of it, we know that we're going to have a closer relationship with Christ, and we're certainly going to have stronger faith. So today we're going to talk about the first keystone habit, which is commitment to community. Commitment to community. And Jesus committed a community. I mean, it says in Matthew 4, Mark 1, Luke 6, John 2, all these verses you can unpack with your small group this week. You can unpack it in your own personal study. But this is what he says. He says that in all of this, you see examples of how Jesus committed to community. Why is this so important? Because way back in the beginning, way back in Genesis, God said, it is not good for you to be alone. He says this in Genesis 2:18, it is not good for the man to be alone. It is not good for you, man or woman. It is not good for you to be alone. We were created to be in community. We were not created to live in isolation. And I know that COVID has just trashed all of this stuff and it's thrown people into a tizzy. And now as we're starting to resume and get back into our regular routines, we need to remember that community is such a vital part of our regular routines and our regular life. I find that interesting, but Cigna had come up with a statistic. They actually did some research, and they asked the question, and basically a bunch of questions, but they wanted to determine how many people feel isolated, how many people feel alone, or what percentage. And prior to COVID, they found that 61% of Americans experienced loneliness, some on a consistent and regular basis. So just think of that. 61% of Americans feel on a regular basis, or at least pretty sporadically, a sense of loneliness. You are made to be in community. You're made to be in community. And maybe at the end of this message, if anything that you get out of it is, you know what? I need to find myself a good group of refrigerator friends. I've talked about that in so many of my previous messages. But maybe for you, you'll really take it serious this time and say, you know what? I'm going to do something. I've had enough. Like, I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to actually do something about it. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to put myself out there by the grace of God, the power of the Holy Spirit. And I'm going to find some influential people who can speak into my life. We call these refrigerator friends. King Solomon says this: if you walk with the wise, you become wise. But a companion of fools suffers harm. Right? Companion of fools suffers harm. It's kind of like those friends who say, this is being, I said this a number of months ago, but hey guys, watch this. 4 words that get every man into trouble. Hey guys, watch this. Or the other 3 words that get all these guys into trouble. Hold my beer. All right. These are Bubba comments, right? If you have all of your primary friends are these guys, hold my beer. Hey guys, watch this. You might need to look for some new friends. See, Jesus had this community around him. He committed to community because it was important. And if anyone could have lived their life in isolation, it was Jesus Christ. But he chose to be surrounded by this community. He invested in community. He knew how important it was. A study by David McClelland over a 30-year period determined that 95% of our success or failure in life is determined by the people we habitually associate with. There's no more important predictor of the future you than to look at the community of the current you. Isn't that fascinating? There's no greater predictor of the future you than the crowd that you hang out with now, your current you. I find that so incredibly fascinating. It's fascinating. So what that tells us is that it's important to identify in our life the people that we need to, that we are allowing in our lives to influence us. So you need to allow the right people in your life to influence you, because that's what Jesus did, and that's what we need to do. Keep moving on here. If you're trying to instill any of the other 4 habits that we're going to talk about, this is one that you want to get right. This is one you want to get right, because your community matters. I know we've talked about this in the past. We bring it up on a regular basis because it's important. It's important. You've seen it. I've seen it. You felt the effects of loneliness. I felt the effects of loneliness. And you also know what it feels like to have some good refrigerator friends in your life, people that are in your inner circle. So we need to identify who the people are that we are allowing into our lives to influence us. We see this, what Jesus says. He says, Jesus didn't say this, but the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he is about to go. The point is this, that Jesus had the multitudes that he ministered to, but then he also had the 72 that were a little bit closer to him than the multitudes. These were the people that stuck around him more often. Then out of that, Jesus had the inner 12, and out of his 12, he had the 3 that he really invested in, Peter, James, and John. So yes, Jesus, just think of it like this. Jesus had a whole bunch of Facebook friends, right? He had a whole bunch of Facebook friends that he would just like connect with whatever loosely. But then he had a group of people that he actually had into his home, that he would have had into his home. Like these were the 12. And then he had the 3. These were his close refrigerator friends, if you will. So just trying to put it in a modern context. You have a lot of associates. You have a lot of acquaintances. Many of us have a little bit broader circle of people that we would say, yeah, they're friends, but very few, but chances are you have very few close friends. One of my friends said, if you can count all your good friends on one hand, you're a blessed man. And I would completely agree with him. If you can count all your good friends on one hand, you're blessed, incredibly blessed. So the 3 that Jesus invested in the most. So we have the 72, we have the 12, and we have the 3. And these 3 guys weren't perfect either. Maybe you're thinking, yeah, I've got 3 really close friends, and yeah, they're helping me grow closer to Christ, but they're not perfect. Maybe I need to replace them. Well, that's a decision for you to figure out. But when you think about it, Jesus' inner circle was not perfect either. They were far from perfect. In fact, when everyone came to get Jesus, Peter's the guy that picked up a sword and hacked off the soldier's ear. He wasn't supposed to do that. He took matters into his own hands. When Jesus needed Peter the most, Peter abandoned him. The rooster crowed, Peter cried like terrible. James and John, they went to a village that rejected him, and John was always a little bit insecure, and James kind of a feisty feller. Well, they wanted to call down fire from heaven and smote a village. Imagine that. They're walking with Jesus like he is peace. He is grace. He is love. And James and John are like, hey, Jesus, you want us just to, call down a little fire from heaven and smoke them all for you? Like, these were not perfect guys. Your refrigerator friends, your close-knit friends, your inner 3 are probably not perfect either. I know my close friends are not. But yet they still help me grow closer to Christ. So the question that you need to ask is your community bringing you closer to Jesus or moving you further away from him? Is it moving you further from Jesus or closer to him? You know the answer to that. That's a very personal question. Some of you know that you've got some bad relationships that you still need to sever. You know this, and you need to do it. My question for you is, what are you waiting for? Because every time this person calls, every time she calls, every time he calls, it always ends up in, hey guys, watch this, or hold my beer, or I didn't mean to do that. And you know this. So why not just make that decision to retract from that relationship, to do some trimming, like Jesus says in John 15, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who remains in me can do many things, but apart from me, you can do nothing. Why not trim some of those branches off, those relational branches that you have in your life? It'll help you to be a better person. Yeah, it might be hard, but it also might be the right thing to do. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know those people who are in your life that you need to cut out right now. Just saying that from my heart to yours. Look at your relationships. Look at your relationships and look at who you need to cut out. So, is your community bringing you closer to Jesus or moving you further away from him? Ecclesiastes 4:9. 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. Solomon said this. One of the wisest people, the wisest person they say to ever live. 2 are better than 1. So who is your community? Who is your community? When we get this right, when you get this right, when I get this right, we'll surround ourselves with godly people who help us grow closer to Jesus Christ. Over the years of my own life, there have been people who've led me astray, like I thought I could be a positive influence in their life, and it turns out no matter how much I tried, I wasn't. And I was going out in the rhubarb patch, and it just wasn't good. They were taking me from my family goals. They were taking me away from my spiritual goals. I liked them as a person, but they were truly leading me in the wrong direction, and that wasn't right. And some of the pruning I had to do was hard, and it's difficult because you care about these people. And eventually I just kind of had to keep them as acquaintances and not let them be part of my inner circle. And that is one of the hardest things to do, which is to look at your inner circle or who you think is your inner circle and kind of make some moving adjustments there. It's difficult. One of the first reshuffles that ever happened in my relational circles when I gave my life to Christ. I thought all of my friends that I hung out with, we all hung out at the bar together, and I thought these were my cronies, my brothers and sisters, whatever. Well, I gave my life to Christ, and about 90% of them simply vanished. They didn't accept me. They wanted nothing to do with me. They didn't want to take the friendship to the next level. But several of them stuck out and still stuck with me through it all. One of them became a believer. The other one did not. But they were a good friend for a long time, and I built on that. And over the years, people have moved away or they've come and gone. And the point is that you might have 2 or 3 or 4 good friends right now, and if one moves away, sometimes we just lament it and we don't replace that person because friendships are hard, especially good friendships. But they're worth keeping, they're worth investing in. So for you out of this, I hope that you evaluate your own friendships, your relationships, and you really dig into that question, are my friends leading me closer to Christ or further from him? Are they helping me to see Jesus in a better light? Are they praying for me? Are they lifting me up? Is this what true biblical community looks like? Or is this particular person leading me astray? Only you know the answer to that question. But if we want to aim to be like Jesus, if he is truly our role model, which he should be, if we want to be in relationship, we know that Jesus had Peter, James, and John, but ultimately he had his best relationship with his Heavenly Father. And even with you, with your friendship circle, hopefully out of that, there's always one that you have the best relationship with ever, and that is your Heavenly Father. So think about it this week as you commit to community, being a part of the movement of God. And what does that look like in your own life? Do you need to shuffle the deck? Or do you need to bring in your close friends even closer? Maybe start to pray together as friends. Maybe start to pray for each other, for each other's kids, for each other's families. Maybe you need to step up your relationship and you need to be there for your friends as they have been there for you. I don't know. A lot to think about. But we know that Jesus committed to community, and that's exactly what we want to do as well. Heavenly Father, I pray today that you will help us to think about our relationships and our friendships. And I pray, God, that you help us to do the pruning where we need to prune, and that we'll cherish those friendships that you've already given us, and even help us to make some new, fresh ones if that's where we're at right now. God, we love you, and we give you all praise in Jesus' name. And everybody typed in, amen. All right. Enjoy your groups this week. Bye for now.